What's going on, everybody? What's going on? What's going on? Give uh give everybody a couple of minutes here to jump on in. I appreciate everybody coming through. I know today was much later than normal for the squadcast. I've been very busy, as most of you guys know, so I appreciate everybody taking the time to come hang out. What's up? What's going on? Stats, what's up, discerning? Germs, TK, Hug, Galaxy, what's going on? Callan, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? So for those who don't know, my name's Panic. We not only do I stream Squad, but we've also started the weekly Squadcast, aka podcast. Um, this week, my guest again will be Lawn Darts. I do not think that Assault will make it, but we will find out if he decides to show up. That's totally fine if he's able to make the time. What's up, Gifted? This week's discussion will be player mechanics. We'll talk about that here in a second. First, I wanted to let you guys know. This is my friend Lawn Darts. If you guys don't know who he is, definitely go check him out on YouTube. If you haven't seen any of the other Squadcasts yet, um, Lawn, if you wanted to introduce yourself, please do.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Panic. Always glad to be on the stream with you. As you said, I'm Lawn Darts. I've got a passion for Squad. Spend most of my spare time playing Squad, as probably a lot of people listening to this cast have. I'm not sure how many people have over 10,000 hours in the game. Been playing since about mid-2017. Last few years, I've been also making a lot of Squad cinematic content and having a lot of fun doing that. But these days, my main passion, I think, is along the lines of yours, Panic, as well, which is to help people who are new to the game, to teach them the ropes, and to just grow the community. Because I've gotten so much out of the game, just I'd like to be able to put a little bit back.
So, as you guys saw, that's his YouTube link in there. We will actually show one of his newer videos at some point during an intermission today. Definitely go throw him a sub on YouTube. It's free. It's not like Twitch. You can 100% do it for free. It helps out. Definitely check out the rest of his content. I've watched quite a few of his videos. They're very good. Now, to speak about this week's episode, we're going to be discussing player mechanics. I will kind of go over a few of the things that we will talk about, and then we'll go more into depth about that. So some of the things we're going to discuss are movement speed, which would include the current versus the past. Historic changes like going prone animation, the stopping of the drop shot, things like that. Different stamina regen and different stances, weapon sway, stamina and stances, down state, revive but not healed state, revive speeds, which includes like the medics versus others, ADS time differences for different weapon systems. So weapon systems and weapon configurations. So like iron sights versus optics, like M4s versus the Mosin or the SKS, for example. And one of the other things that's a lot of people don't know is the surprising difference between the left and right peaking and leaning. Discussion of like the lean span by comp players, which I still do this sometimes, so I'm definitely guilty. Also, one of the other big things that I'm sure a lot of people would like to weigh in on is damage taken and time to kill. Any other topics that come up during the discussion, obviously, we'll discuss as they go, but those are some of the main points that we wanted to speak on this week. So I guess starting off, Law, on the movement speed, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started. What are your thoughts on the faster movement speed, which is current, versus the close past, which would be the slower movement speed?
Well, I think Panic, it's been about a year since they upped the run speed, give or take a few months, and a lot of it's obviously depends on who you are, right? If you're the guy getting shot at, then you obviously can't have enough speed at your disposal to get across a road or to get out of harm's way. But I think everyone obviously who plays is also a shooter at the various times, and I think it can be a little frustrating that the movement speed is just that little bit quicker. I think Doesn't mean it's run and gun, but it speeds up the game a little bit, and I think the slower pace has a lot to say for it. I did a little bit of testing, so we get some actual some science behind our comments. So the current run speed in squad equates to approximately 11.8 miles per hour. Now, there's going to be a plus and minus on that I didn't bother calculating, so you'll have to forgive me, but about 11.8 miles per hour. And that's worked out by a player full stamina from a standing start, time taken to cover 100 metres, which is about 19 seconds. And with a bit of high school maths and physics, that's 11.8 miles per hour. To put that 11.8 miles per hour in context, the average male human, according to Google, runs at about 8 miles an hour. So that seems in the realms of possibility. Now, a soldier with full kit going at that speed, well trained, I suppose, for their first 100 meters, probably no problem. So I also tested out, what about with no stamina? And I did that by dropping a grenade at my feet and being just the right distance away to bleed enough to lose stamina and be able to bandage. I may or may not have had 4 attempts at that, killed myself the first 3 times. But once I was ready to go with no stamina, the same thing, standing start, time taken to cover 100 meters. And I was actually surprised it's not that much slower. It was 23 seconds. That equated to about a 9.69 miles per hour. So from, if you've just been picked up by a medic and you've got no stamina, 0 stamina, you can still evidently, with your full kit, carrying your weapon, irrespective of what weapon that is, run faster than the average male, which I think that's probably not quite in the realms of believability, but maybe for gameplay reasons. They don't want people lagging that far behind their squads, or they don't want to place that much importance on the medics. But those are the facts in terms of what the current run speed is.
So let me ask you this, and we're going to combine 2 of these things while discussing this. And I'm also asking you guys in chat what your thoughts are. So with squads movement speed, and more specifically the run speed being quicker, do you think that the amount of weapon sway that they have now is proper, or do you think, which in my opinion, I'll speak my opinion as an example. Do you think that like I think that maybe toning down the weapon sway would be more beneficial, just because the movement speed is faster, and combining the now faster movement speed with e- especially on 4 different factions, the Chinese, the Australian, the British, um, and the MEA, I think, are all most affected by this. Um, there is a what feels like an over exaggerated amount of weapon sway that I think is partially, if not mostly, affected by the mixture between the new movement. Well, I say new, but the new movement speed, the faster movement speed, and the current weapon sway statistics, um, as they are now. Or do you think it would be more beneficial if they slowed it back down and left the weapon sway as is right now? What are your thoughts, Lon?
Well, I had a quick look in the SDK. There's a variable in there called sway,
Right.
and it's on each of the rifles on their blueprints, and that's each rifle depending on what type of optic or not that it has. So iron sight, an M68 and an M150, to give the US Army example. And there is a different value for the M4 with M150 for sway versus the value on the Chinese PLA's standard issue rifle, the QBZ 95 or Type 95. It's the numbers themselves, I suppose, are arbitrary. I really don't know what the numbers specifically means, but in terms of the difference, I suppose you can get a percentage idea for the difference. The numbers for sway for YZ interpretation, and it's got this number called final sway, 2 and 3 respectively for the M4 with the M150. And on the QBZ, those numbers are different, a little higher. 2.5 and 3.5, so zero point 0.5 higher, so about 20% in the case of the first number, and somewhere around about 17-ish percent. Chat obviously can check my maths difference. So your observation that there's a difference in those factions is correct, and I'm just checking some of the other ones now. And for the MEA, it's also different. So it must be a reason for it that OWI has in sort of choosing those variables, because they're just parameters. They're literally just numbers that they would type in before baking a release. And one would suspect that they've thought about those numbers and how they play into the faction and what they're trying to create. But I don't know enough, I suppose, about the real life differences between all those different weapons platforms to judge whether or not it's a fair difference for that reason. I think the Australian faction is interesting, and I'm just opening it up now and having a look. Insofar as that, I would think it's comparable kit with the US Army's kit, and wouldn't necessarily be old or in some way inferior, and therefore rate a higher sway number.
I'm wondering if it has something to do with adding that extra bit of like realism aspect where I'm assuming true to life where like no weapon system shoots the exact same. Um so they all have different, different recoil and different aspects that they obviously can't put into a game, right? But they can do the best that they can to simulate or emulate um said attributes of the weapon. So maybe that
All
could
of
be one of the
those
reasons why.
yeah, I mean, all of those are variables, right? Like, so there's different recall numbers, there's different numbers for just about everything, really. I think for Sway, and I'm just looking here at the EF88 with the Spectre, it's exactly the same as US Army. So I'm not convinced that there's a difference on that one, at least not because of that particular variable. I would suspect it's introduced, and it was I think going from version 9 was like somewhat stable aiming, and I suppose Squad was more skill based in terms of point and click.
100%.
Um, to probably being a bit more accessible with the Sway, adding a little bit, I suppose, of realism. You can definitely make the argument that in real life, no one's a machine unless they're an actual machine. So that your ability to hold something absolutely steady is not going to be 100%. I think the Sway with no stamina, as you said when we were discussing this earlier, and the Sway when you've been injured, completely fair enough. But yeah, I feel like the Sway is there to, a bit like muzzle flashes and a few other things that have been introduced over the last 24 months, even 3 years, are there to make the game more accessible, make the game easier for newer players. And
100%.
part of me hates that. Hates that with a passion, because I like my games to be, somewhat difficult, because then, you can play them for 10,000 hours without getting bored, or at least I've been able to. But, the other part of me realizes that, in order to grow the player base of Squad, we need to keep, newer players around for as long as possible, to, keep the servers popped and what have you. So a degree of accessibility and new player friendliness, I think, is probably needed. And in that context, I suppose the weapon sway isn't too bad. Something we're going to discuss later, I think, again, combining with it, which is time to kill. Squad used to be a little deadlier than it is now.
Oh yeah.
Again, I used to prefer that. It's not like everyone's running around tanking half the enemy team's rounds, but I'm sure, for other reasons, sometimes server desync, etc. But we've all had the situation where you shoot some guy 4 times and somehow he shoots you and you're dead afterwards, right? Now, obviously, there you end up trading, but I feel like, again, shooting someone twice probably should be enough to the body, but it's not always the case. 3 shots generally does it. Obviously, distance is a factor. Again, one of the variables they've got in the STK is a damage fall off after both time, since the round left the end of the muzzle, and also distance. The damage for a round sort of is set at 60 base points, and that's with someone out of someone's 100 base health points. But somehow with all the other variables they've got in there, that equates to, 2 body shots not necessarily killing somebody. So I feel the game was more tactical, required more teamwork when it was a little deadlier and people didn't zip around quite as quick as they do. And when it comes to, the weapon sway, I'd prefer it to be a little less. But that being said, I don't know if it has as big an impact on the overall gameplay as the run speed and the time to kill.
I think there's a good trade-off that I would be 100% okay for, and that would be reverting some of the old TTKs, the time to kill stuff. I would be totally okay if they left the weapon sway with the movement speed as is now, if they gave us the old way of headshots where if you headshot somebody, they had much less time to be picked up by a medic than before. Instead of it being like, it doesn't have to be headshots or instant kills, but what I would like to see, and this would stop a lot of like the roof camping and stuff like that, would be if you headshot somebody, they've got a very short amount of time to get picked up by a medic before they bleed out. I think I would be much more willing to make that trade off for the weapon sway and things like that if that were implemented, in quotations, back into the game. Um, I'm reading chat here for a second too. Berserk said, "I feel like they have more sway because better two tap body potential." Colin said, "I don't think they want to make the game. I don't want the game to be a running sim. But the sway is definitely the sway. I feel is a little bit over exaggerated for sure. Um, yeah, and see, Doug, like I would be willing to make that trade off with the current sway if headshots were um what is it like 240 seconds right now for a normal down or something like that? It's like multiple minutes, right, Lon?
Yeah. Yeah, you can lay there forever. Yep.
So I would be okay with something along the lines of like 45 seconds to a minute. Like if you headshot somebody, they've got 45 seconds to a minute before they bleed out. That would stop a lot. And I keep going back to this image in my head of like people on either like Narva or Albazra or even on smaller maps with smaller buildings like Korra, where you get these guys who will post up on top of these buildings, especially on like Narva in the big like apartment buildings, where you'll have like that one random guy who like runs up to the top and then you headshot him and then he'll wait for like 3 or 4 minutes for a medic to come back and get him. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 minutes later, like while you're moving through, you get shot by the same guy, by said same guy, because he's got 240 seconds to wait to get picked up. So I think having that much more punishing bleed out timer, again, it doesn't have to be an instant kill, but having that much more punishing bleed out timer would negate a lot of the weapon sway issues, I think, just because of the way that squads, not necessarily meta, but the way that squads played um by most casual players, I would say.
I would have to think that's an easy change for them because I've played mods where shots to the head are very quick bleed out, i.e., straight to the menu screen, and ones where the time has been changed. And even within the vanilla version, I'm pretty sure if you're unlucky enough to be in the vicinity of an IED, you don't get very long. It may well be in the vicinity of 10 seconds or 15 seconds. Almost impossible to be picked up. So they've already got some of that in the game. So you'd think that it would be along the lines of what they've done with things like IEDs. It might just be an oversight, and it might be something we could actually ask them to change that they'd be happy to change. Because I do agree, you shouldn't have a situation where you're shooting someone in the face over and over again, and they've got their pocket medic. Now, it may well be that their reasoning behind that is because they want you, to use teamwork, or at least, go over there yourself and claim that territory, clear that territory out. But I'm not sure if that's really their intent. It may be to again make the game more accessible, so people have more of a chance to get revived. but obviously in vanilla squad, the majority of players don't wait for their 4 minutes, right? Like they get shot, they're
Yeah.
giving up and trying to spawn back in and then having to watch the menu for 60 seconds. I mean, my advice to anyone listening is you're going to have to wait anyway to spawn in unless someone's telling you the rally's about to, come up again. So just chill on the ground, right? At least for 60 seconds, because you won't be coming in off a hab any quicker than that. And especially if you've been naughty and killed friendlies, you'll have to wait a little bit longer.
I just thought of something too. To combat like the drama behind super fobs, and this, tell me if you think this would be too complex of an idea, but what if there was compounding wounds until somebody died? So let's say it starts with you get shot 240 seconds. Well, the next time you get shot 160 seconds. The next time you get shot 60 seconds. Like if you get shot and downed and a medic picks you up, it goes from being 240 seconds that time to the next time it's 160 seconds to the next time it's 60 seconds, all the way to the point where you die. It cuts every single time, like maybe like in half or something like that, to where people can't constantly sit on these super fobs or in these buildings and just get down, pick back up, down, pick back up. This time, if I shoot this guy in the window and a medic picks him back up, sure, consider it like a flesh wound or something. Well, he pops back up in the window again. I shoot him. Instead of it being 240 seconds, this time it's 120. His time to get picked up is now 120 seconds. He pops back up in the window again. I hit him again. Now his time to get picked up is only 60 seconds. Or his time to bleed out is only 60 seconds. You see what I'm saying? Do you think that would be too hard for them to implement? And do you think it's not a good idea? And I'm asking for Lon and also for the people in chat too. What do you guys think about that?
I like the idea. I don't know how hard or not it would be for them to implement that sort of, I suppose, cumulative sort of damage or somehow affecting your bleed
And
out
keep in mind
timer.
when you die, it resets and goes back to the 242. So this only does this until you die. Until you actually have to give up and respawn. So 240 seconds to 120 to 60, and it keeps getting cut in half until you have to give up and respawn at a hab. Once you have to do that and respawn at a hab, then it resets again back up to that 240 second maximum. You see what I'm saying? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to clarify
No,
for the people
that's
in
all
chat.
right. Yeah, I think what they've currently got, say, with the hab mechanic of it being overrun proximity, is encouraging you to close the distance, right? So if you're out killing someone in a window from 300 meters away, 200 meters away, even 100 meters away, the incentive there, if you know what's going on with the game, is to get within hab proxy distance, and obviously kill the medics as well and whoever else is in the building, so no one can pick anyone up. But so it's encouraging. It's encouraging, I suppose, closing the distance and getting up in the enemy's face, which is probably a good thing. And really the way to deal with any super fob is obviously or get on any objective. You've got to get on top of it. You've got to physically have your presence there in the cap zone or in the fob proxy radius or whatever to stop people spawning back in. I was thinking when you were talking about, maybe they'll introduce something like a field hospital as a deployable, but obviously that won't help what we're talking about, because that'll be the second thing placed down after the hab probably, or maybe the third thing after the ammo crate. It's the same problem. Yeah, I think it's okay. It doesn't encourage people to just give up instantly, any more so than the time bombs being what they currently are. But I just don't know how hard and how much work that would be for them to implement. And the impact would be that they'd then be looking for a rally or a hab to spawn on. I suppose a rally wouldn't give you the brand new health. It'd be only what the hab or a visit to main base or something like that. So it still puts a premium on trying to get close to the hab to proxy it. I mean, that's really what the game's about in some regards. Attacking enemy spawn locations and being able to proxy the hab. And they brought that change in maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a bit more, to stop the meat grinder that was happening on habs. And some of the argument for bringing that in was to take a little bit of the shine and luster from the concept of a super fob away. But clearly that hasn't really been the case, right? People still love to build their super fobs.
What do you think about the revive speeds? like the compared to
I'd
like the
like to see them
medic
be
and the
quicker.
for both medics and infantry, like
Yes,
basic infantry. I could get
I
behind
think
it.
so. Not a lot, right? Like splitting hairs a bit, but a couple seconds quicker. I mean, at the moment, it. I suppose what it forces at the moment is for you to secure the area, or theoretically secure the area around the person you're picking up, or drag them into cover, or wait until it's safe to do so. But all of that equals people not bothering to pick up dead friendlies around them because it's too hard, takes too long. I'd like to see everyone get an extra advantage as well for the same reason, like just to encourage trying to pick up dead friendlies. I mean, I'm sure you and I have been there, right? You're laying dead and you're watching, half the platoon walk past you, and one of the motherfuckers has a bandage on them. Now, some of those people are just oblivious to the fact you're lying dead there because, they're listening to their squad leader, they're looking elsewhere. Um, there's people who don't check their maps, obviously. There's a lot of people like that. But there's a healthy percentage that know you're dead there, but it takes too long to pick you up. It's too hard. They don't want to risk their neck too much. They don't want to waste a bandage on you. And I think, to encourage the teamwork, it would be good to have a couple of seconds shaved off for a rifleman and maybe even anything up to about 4 or 5 seconds shaved off for a medic.
I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think it would be a bad thing. I mean, you have to think of it as like somebody being wounded, and then you're like propping them up to where they can shoot, but they're not going to move. Like they're waiting to get treated for their wounds. Um, I know that sounds like cinematic or almost like a movie, but in the sense that like you don't have any stamina, your screen's black and white, like you're still very heavily handicapped when picked up when not treated by a medic. So I wouldn't see there being any issue, especially with like regular infantry picking up at say maybe like double the amount of time that it takes for a medic to pick up. Whereas now I think it's like triple or it's like almost it might be almost quadruple. I swear it's like 8 or 9 seconds for a regular infantry to pick somebody up. All right,
I was
maybe
wondering
one
that.
of the yeah, it's like 12 maybe?
Oh no, it's somewhere in the ballpark. And sorry for not having the exact number. It's in the ballpark of about 16 to 20 seconds.
Okay, yeah,
Because
so
if yeah,
and that's a long time.
it's
Um,
forever, right? You're always like looking at this bandage animation, and then obviously sometimes it glitches. So you're like, did it glitch? Did it not glitch? I mean, it's. I would like to see things that make medics' life a little bit easier in game for game reasons, right? Because medics need more love. It's one of the most important roles. But often goes to the new guy because no one else wants to do it because who wants to play a medic, and by making things a little quicker for the medic, making them a little bit more expert, I think that's going to encourage more people to play the role, which is great for the teamwork. And by increasing the pickup speed by maybe a factor of 30% for riflemen, it's going to be more likely people are going to want to pick you up, and then give everyone an extra bandage so that people aren't getting so stingy with their bandages.
do you think there'd be more incentive for people to play medics if medics had some sort of like really unique special thing about them that is different from other classic? Maybe they had like a specific optic or a specific something specific about their class, and I can't really brainstorm anything off the top of my
Like a
head.
bolt action and a 10x scope. Yeah, but unfortunately, your medic's not going to be near your squad anymore.
No, not necessarily that. I just mean like I don't know, like maybe they're the only ones that can do like a flip optic, right? Where like it's a hollow with a what is it like the 2x or whatever, the 3x that flips, and they're the only ones that get to use it, right? Or something like that.
Oh,
Not
like a
anything that's like
CQC optic?
yeah, like it's not something that's like super over the top, right? But where they've got like a hollow sight, right? Like an EOTech, and then they've got a flip sight um in front of it or towards the barrel of the weapon where if they wanted to press like middle mouse button or something like that, it would flip the side up and they get like a 3x or something like that, right? Some sort of incentive where they have this like cool feature about them um that like I said gives people that incentive to pick the class up and play it outside of something like that.
Well,
Or
I
maybe yeah.
like playing medic on all the classes that have a decent scope, because you're super soldier, right?
Yeah.
you got unlimited self healing, and was it 9 bandages that obviously less as you start to pick up friendlies. But medic is a cool role to play, especially for an experienced player, because you're shooting people, picking up your squad. You really do function as a large part of your squad as an experienced player playing medic. Unfortunately, though, if the second medic in a lot of the factions gets an iron sight, so that's pretty shit. Especially when you're up against an enemy that's using optics. There, essentially you are just there for the medicing, for the bandages, to dig up abs, to run off in the opposite direction with the squad leader to place a rally, and that's probably okay for newer players, for an hour or two. But who in their right mind wants to do that for too long? So I feel like having the second medic not have an optic available is a discouragement to people picking the class, right? So I don't really understand why they do that. An example would be the British faction's second medic gets a SUSAT now. SUSATs aren't great, but I have no issue playing with a SUSAT on some of the urban maps. As most engagements are within 100 meters anyway. And while I hate that big triangle looking thing, it's you get used to it. It's also quicker to aim down sights because it's got less magnification. They obviously do that as a balancing thing, so it's very handy in CQC. And again, you get to be a bit of a super soldier. You get all the self healing, but for all the other factions, I can't think of one off the top of my head where the second medic gets really anything except a red dot or equivalent or iron sights, and I think
What
that's
about
baffling.
giving this what about this, right? So there's already an optic medic, right? That's your long range engagement medic. What if we gave the second medic an SMG, right? That has like decent full auto recoil control, so they're the CQB guys, right? That would be pretty sweet, in my opinion. Having like either like an MP5 or like some sort of equivalent for I mean, what is it? The MEA that could have like micro Uzis just a regular Uzi or something like that. I mean, something like that would be really, really, really cool for me. I would play second medic all the time if I had a submachine gun, and also it wouldn't be the first time technically that wasn't squad, because if it counts, the militia medic used to get the AKS 74U back in the
Yeah.
day. That was a while ago. So maybe something like that would work. What do you guys in chat think? And what do you think, Lon?
Well, if it doesn't have an optic on it of some description, people aren't going to pick it because there are, unless it's a layer of which there's only one that comes to mind, Insurgents versus Australia on Cora, where both teams are sort of limited on optics. Every other map and layer combination I can think of with the factions, you're up against people who have, generally speaking, 4x optics, and you'd be crazy not to have one yourself. So I think other weapons is a great idea, but I think you got to combine it with a equivalent or somewhat equivalent optic.
Yeah.
I mean, we discussed last week, where I said, well, I don't know why there aren't layers where everyone does have just iron sights, and you don't have tanks or anything that's going to have optics. Now, it may well be that's not in the game because that's not overly realistic to 21st century battlefields. There's always someone running around with optics, and most guys who can get one will have one. But I feel like if you're US Army, medics would probably rate an optic if it's available, even in the era that squads sort of set in, which is sort of around the 2010s. Marine Corps, obviously you've got corpsmen who are attached to a Marine infantry squad, which is like, I think 15 guys now, but back in 2010 it was around 13 guys was a Marine infantry squad. So Squad the game has chosen 9-player squads. I think, based on the US Army's 9-man squad sort of structure. And then all other factions sort of, I suppose, are shoehorned into that a little bit. I don't know how many medics, would be in your typical US Army squad. I'd be surprised if it's 2. maybe there's someone in chat or yourself, has information on that. The Marines, they've got one corpsman assigned to them, have really no idea what the Russians are doing. But in squad, obviously, what they've chosen is the potential for 2 medics per squad, but the second medic being GIMP. And I just don't see the reason for that when really you'd want to encourage people to pick it.
Okay. Somebody said, or not somebody, but Blank said, grip in a hollow. I would be totally okay with that. Even grip hollow and full auto for second medic might be cool because it's not like way over the top. But maybe full auto would be a little OP.
Yeah, I blanked out, mentioned they get extra grenades, which obviously when you want to throw one's handy, but I think, I'd always give up a grenade for an optic over an eyesight.
Um, I don't know. I guess it's something time will tell. Um, let's see. I guess the best thing that we could do that would for sure not hurt um um would probably be cutting the for sure not I don't know how it would be have to be tested for the medics, but definitely the testing of the bandages. um Testing of the bandages for the medics, but for infantry, for basic infantry, just doing cutting it in half because like you said it's like 16 to 20 seconds. um that would be something super interesting. Definitely giving them a cutback so it's not, it's not 16 to 20 seconds or whatever it is. I think realistically more around like 8 seconds would be totally fine. I'm thinking like I was trying to visualize in my head like ripping the bandage, doing the wrap thing, press,
Mm.
hold, and then you're good.
Yeah, I've played, and some of the guys in chat might have also dynamic direction, and they decreased time to pick people up, and it's great, right? Like you feel like you can go and pull someone out, the line of fire and get them picked up and back in the fight, or at least you're back in the fight. I like the extra speed, and they actually increased the healing speed of a medic with their medic bag out, healing someone back to full health as well. So I think that added to the joy of playing because you spend more time, focused on, I suppose, shooting at the end of the day, which is why a lot of us play. Um, that being said, it's one of those changes where I'm going against what I said earlier, right? Like it makes it a little bit more casual. It makes it a little faster paced, but I just feel like, we don't have to spend too much time, or we shouldn't be spending, 20 seconds over somebody's corpse to try and revive them. It's just too long. For a simple medic system like it is, it strikes me as being 5-6 seconds too long.
A carry option for medics. Oh, that's what I'm reading from Colin in chat. The ability to carry down players. I mean,
Where would you carry them to?
the other thing too is like imagine them trying to produce that animation where like a guy like somehow bends over, throws someone like over their shoulder or like under their arms and then carries them. I think
Yeah,
that'd
I'd
be
test out
super.
the collision models on both the meshes and everything. That would, I mean, it'd be doable. I mean, obviously, Unreal Engine's pretty cool, and you can do just about anything, so it'd be doable. But I'm just not sure what's the benefit of as a medic of carrying somebody. You're better off, just picking them up or getting them back to health then and there, or you drag them into a little bit of cover. If you're having to, pick someone up and run with them for 100 meters like that, I just don't know why you'd be doing that.
Yeah,
And then
true.
obviously, people be trolling in game and wearing their dead comrades as like a mink coat around their shoulders. All the medics will have a body on their shoulders just because they can.
Yeah, it'd be I think that would be hard for them to produce. It would be strange.
Mr. Prophet mentioned that the MEE Middle East escalation mod has a faster drag
Faster drag
speed.
speed. Hmm.
He likes it, and I think yeah, there's a lot of parameters in the squad. From time it takes to pick somebody up to how long you aim down sights. That are really just literally like numbers in a spreadsheet type sort of thing sitting in the SDK and reasonably easy to change. Some of them affect other things, so I'm not suggesting you can just go crazy and everything will work as intended, but it's not like, you would have to do a lot of modeling of new meshes or new game logic. They're parameters that are in there for you to be able to play with and tweak. And I think, you really could change squad completely by playing with all the parameters that are there. And obviously OWI is where it is because of all the testing they've done and the feedback they get from the community. I am surprised though that there aren't just more mods that essentially a vanilla squad, but with all these various parameters mess with. Most of the mods, have different skins, different factions. They go a lot further. Some of them change these values. Some of them don't. But I feel like there's the opportunity there for somebody to come up with a perfect set of values, put it out there and see what people think. Slower run speed, less weapon sway, faster pickup time, you name it. It's all there basically as parameters that can be just adjusted by type as it is the type and the new number.
True.
I think the things that they've done that have changed a lot, and this comes from, I suppose, it being a Kickstarter and sort of in development for a long time. And I think it was around, was it when did we get the prone animation, the proper prone animation?
V10, I think, right?
Was it V10? I think so. And so what was really good about that, it stopped people drop shotting you. All right, you run into an alleyway. Oh, look, there's the enemy, and next thing you know, he's on the ground. You've missed him because he's instantly managed to hit the ground and he shot you. The drop shot, and I may or may not have been guilty of doing the same thing myself because gamer does what a gamer has to do. I really enjoyed when they brought in that transition animation to slow that down, so that wasn't a thing anymore. And be interesting to what other people think about that. An example, I suppose, of a more modern day gamey thing like the drop shot is the lean spamming, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right, that you see a lot of people who are comp players and those who are emulating comp players try and do. Now, it can be effective if you're good at shooting back while flopping yourself around. So it takes a lot of practice, but it looks ridiculous. First few people who did it to me, I thought they were like trying to, be friends or something like that. So, I was just a sitting duck. Once I figured it was like some sort of like, strategy, um, you just don't aim for anything other than sort of just below center mass and it sort of negates it. That being said though, like, you mentioned earlier, you do a bit of it. So why do you do it? Do you think it would be a bad thing if it was removed? Yeah. What's your general thoughts on it, Panic?
Well, I don't think it would be bad if it was removed. It's I don't know how to put this. It's up to the person, right? Um, I'm not sure. I don't think it would be bad. I can't even. Hmm.
It'd be an easy fix. You just, increase the time between going left and right to where suddenly somebody doesn't look like they're one of those inflatable, um, Gumby men that are at car dealerships. The 50-foot tall
Yeah,
ones
the
flapping in the
whacking
breeze.
inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Yeah, and I feel like it'd be probably very easy to stop it from being a thing. I did notice a Reddit post on it a couple of weeks back, and it was quite polarizing a topic. I would have thought most people would be, yeah, it's a bit silly, but there seemed to be a fairly vocal contingent there who thought it was great and it shouldn't be touched.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things we could rabbit hole down again, huh? Like I keep thinking and thinking, then I'm like wrapping my head around different ideas too. It's just
Well, guess who
animations are hard.
619 says in chat, if it needs to be practiced, then it should stay. I I don't know if I agree with that. You could practice a whole range of exploits and glitches. I don't think just the fact that you're practicing them means that they should stay. But on the topic of practice, I will mention something as just a general tip. And I'm not suggesting you train for squad like your Rocky Balboa going for the world title sort of thing. But if you did want to practice a little bit, a good thing to do is to jump into Jensen's range. Injure yourself to where you have no stamina, so you can either throw a grenade and you'll eventually know how far away to stand without killing yourself, but you reduce your stamina, or you can jump off some HESCO walls until you're injured enough, and then practice your shooting at targets. So I practice in adverse conditions. Don't practice by being prone, holding shift, with your bipod out, because anyone can do that. And typically in a game against a human competitor who's paying attention, they don't allow you the time always to do all of that. So by practicing a lot with no stamina whatsoever, it makes you much better shooter. And while the weapon sway is theoretically random, it's not fully random. And as all humans have the ability to be able to get muscle memory, to learn patterns. So even in the fully down state, I'm not saying you'll be able to one-shot people from 200 meters, but in those engagements that you have from 50 to 100 meters, where you happen to be in that state just because that's the state you're in, you're going to be more successful if you practice that way. And for when you do have like full stamina and perfect conditions, it just makes it easy, piece of cake then. But I see a lot of people who really struggle with the down state and the sway. And, if they just occasionally jumped in Jensen's range for 5 minutes and do a little bit of practicing with whatever weapon they want to practice without having stamina, makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
True. We are approaching 50 minutes long. Do you want to take a quick, a short break, and then we'll get back to it?
Yeah, sure. You're going to play that video I sent you?
I'm gonna play one of Londart's videos. Make sure you guys go show him some love on the tube. You got anything you want to explain about the video? Go ahead before I play.
Yeah, it's an excerpt from episode 5 of Squad Better, which was all about the M27, one of my favorite rifles in squad used by the United States Marine Corps. And we were talking the other week, about inspirations for some of my video. This particular one, there's a scene fairly early on with a helicopter flying in that's directly inspired by the movie Miami Vice.
All right, folks. I know last time, and I've been turning people onto your videos when I've been AFK and during stream. Sometimes instead of playing the highlight reel, I'll play one of yours. And somebody said something about the Miami Vice vibes, and I said no. He's got one. He's got a couple that are strictly, not strictly, but are very much inspired by Miami Vice. The one that they were speaking of was the what was it called? The one with the bikes, the dirt bikes, and the marksman up on the hill.
That's actually Mad Max, that particular one. The scene with the HK 417 with the Australian marksman was inspiration was gotten from Mad Max. Maybe next week I'll put something together that shows some of the pictures I found, and then I tried to recreate some of those within the scene. Give people a little bit of a behind the scenes.
All right, let's play that video. We'll regroup here in just a couple of minutes. All right, everybody. Let me know what you guys think. Go show him some love on YouTube. Throw him a sub. It's free on YouTube. And we'll get right back to it.
Let me start by telling you what I like about using the M27 in the context of squad. It's versatile. It embodies an automatic rifle on the move. The M27 gives you the confidence to be able to respond quickly and precisely in an engagement right when the proverbial hits the fan. Unlike the SAW, where consistent and even vaguely accurate fire beyond 100 meters without being bipoded is very difficult. This M27 operator is immediately suppressing and eliminating the enemy at 400 meters, allowing the rest of his squad to get to cover and get set to also return fire. This is exactly what you want as an infantryman looking to close with and destroy the enemy. In semi-automatic, the M27 is accurate and a joy to use. Full automatic is of course very handy for CQC. In squad, it is a rookie mistake to go cyclic, even if you are bipoded. And if you are not, you are going to really struggle to control the recoil and burn through the 30-round magazine in a touch over 2 seconds. You want to be using short, controlled bursts of fire. This has 2 advantages, namely conserving ammunition and thus extending the length of time your gun is up, and improved accuracy, increasing the likelihood of suppressing or eliminating the target. There are 2 concepts intersecting here, so let's take a moment to be clear with our definitions. The M27 has 2 available fire modes, semi and full automatic. These are a characteristic of the weapon system. The weapon's fire modes are independent of and should not be confused with the 2 rates of fire a typical Marine is trained to use on the battlefield. These fire rates are called sustained and rapid and describe the operator's use of the weapon system. The sustained rate is a rate at which the shooter maximizes the economy of rounds while still accurately and consistently engaging the target. The more aggressive, rapid rate is employed to overwhelm the enemy by volume of accurate fires in order to seize or regain fire superiority. However, the rates of fire are ultimately determined by how fast you can accurately engage the enemy and create the battlefield effects consistent with the tactical situation on hand. You want your ammunition to last the duration of the current engagement and still be prepared for the next one. Looking to tactically reload when appropriate helps ensure you don't run out of pew-pew at a critical moment. You should always be aware of the remaining rounds available. With all this in mind, I generally use the M27 on semi-auto for the majority of engagements beyond 50 meters, even if bipod stabilized. This conserves your magazine, enhances accuracy, reduces the firing signature of your position, and reduces the chances you are caught off guard with a near-empty magazine should a new threat or target of opportunity present itself. Caveats to this would be engaging fast-moving targets perpendicular to your direction of fire, such as soft vehicles, or enemy combatants sprinting from cover to cover. In these situations, laying down short streams of lead can be more effective. As I said previously, the versatility of the Squad M27 is a large part of its appeal. The only real drawback in-game is that it does not come with an ammo bag. In comparison, the Squad M16A4 with M150 doesn't have a bipod nor match the M27's high fire rate, accuracy or better controllability, although it does have a higher magnification optic and riflemen do get an ammo bag with it. The M249 SAW for the USMC has the same SDO optic as the M27 but can only fire in fully automatic, making control when not bipod stabilized difficult and cumbersome. The lower accuracy of the M249 is typically overcome by the sheer volume of fire the 100 round box magazine allows. The SAW is a beast and a lot of fun to use, but it does still lack the versatility of playstyle that the M27 facilitates.
Enjoyed a teaser of
the M27 is a more mobile platform than the
many
M249,
videos, all
allowing
great
much
content.
faster.
So show him some love on the tubes. All right, I am back. Have you returned as well, Lon?
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. So, one of the other things that we had on the list of things to discuss were the ADS time differences between weapon configurations. I know one that I think that needs a longer ADS time is the Mosin. I feel like it's like a quick scope machine. That's like it's a COD machine in squad because I've definitely done it a couple of times, and I screamed out saying that this was broken when it happened.
I might just look up its ADS info and compare it to the M4. So too quick. Is it, you're talking about the one with the optic on it?
Yeah, the Mosin with the optic on it. Yep, they're the insurgent sniper, as they call it, is a pretty quick scope speed. And while we're on the topic of optics too, not necessarily that it pertains to ADS time differences, but one of the things I wanted to speak about in particular was the Chinese faction. This is kind of playing back into us talking about Sway, even though it's not necessarily the same. But there are differences in the what I call like the bob when strafing. So like if I'm ADS right, and this plays into ADS a little bit. When I'm ADS with the Chinese optic rifleman or the Chinese optic squad leader kit, the bob when strafing is so dramatic that it's impossible to acquire. It's almost impossible to acquire a target accurately when trying to fight the sway and the bob at the same time. And not necessarily that there needs anything to be done with the ADS time, but there's a couple of weapon systems that I think could really use um, a change, for lack of better words, to balance them out a little bit more. Because I don't think there's anything about the Chinese factions infantry weapons that make them more OP than anything else. If anything, like the hide over bore on the Chinese
Yeah, it's
optic rifles,
ridiculous.
it's insane. And I think there's a set of balance that needs to be played within there for sure. Have you noticed it? I'm guessing you've noticed it too since you said that.
Yeah, I made a YouTube short on the YMA 600 optic, which is the optic that's on the Type 95 rifle that the riflemen get, automatic riflemen get, LATs get. Like most of the PLA faction has the that particular optic, and you do tend to miss a little high with it, just in general. So I would always suggest aim a little lower than you think. But the
Yeah,
one thing I was surprised at, and it wasn't really my opinion, sort of going into doing the research for that video, but it's actually a pretty good reticle pattern. It's actually quite handy. It's clear. It's pretty easy to see smaller targets beyond the reticle pattern. Some of the other reticle patterns, block your target. Classic examples of SUSAT or the is it 1P63, the insurgents get? No, that's the green dot for the Russians, but the insurgent 4X that has the SUSAT like
the upside down one.
tri- triangle in it. Yeah.
I love that one.
So it's a lot clearer. And yeah, the reticles actually really easy to use once you know what the gaps are to get your range, because that's really what it boils down to. How far away is somebody, and then put the right point of aim on where you want to shoot them. As gamers, typically that's their head, and fire. But generally speaking, I noticed that as your target gets closer to you with the Type 95 with that optic, you start to miss a little high, and that's why the reticle pattern actually there's a plus in the middle, and the middle of that plus is 100 meters, but the top of the center post of that plus is actually 50 meters.
Right,
So
and
you
I learned
actually
that
got
from
to
your
aim.
video.
You aim down just a little bit when targets are closer. Similar to the Canadian optic and their rifle, where you tend to miss a little high, but it's zeroed at 200 meters. So it's for a sort of a different set of reasons. I think the PLA, did they model that sort of in on purpose because the height over bore, and it's just crazy. It sits up on top there, that optic. And in fact, if you ever watch someone third person, it sits above their eye line as well. It doesn't line up with their eye line, just because it's crazy the way it sits up on top of the carry handle. That's pretty much why it does it. It's because they've got a carry handle on top of the weapon, and they mount the optic to that. But The key thing is, on that one, you just gotta aim a little lower for close-in targets.
It's it's been a struggle for me to get good with that rifle. I'm trying and trying and trying, and it's so hard. Well, the rifle and optic combined, it's extremely hard for me to get used to that. Especially with the amount of that bob that I was speaking about is so dramatic.
It's
I
got more
wish,
recoil as well.
yeah, it's got a real cool. It has the op. For those that don't know this, the optic rifleman for the Chinese has more recoil than the automatic rifleman. It makes zero sense, and I'm talking about like standing up recoil, not uh while the automatic rifleman's bipoded, like just raw standing up, shooting at a wall. You can test the recoil and look at the spray patterns, and it's way, way more crazy on the Chinese optic rifleman than it is for the AR. It's wild.
I mean, maybe that's because of the box magazine, bit
Could be.
heavier, and, the bipod, I mean, it's all plastic, fantastic in real life, so I don't know how
True.
much extra weight that's really gonna add, and I suppose it would have an effect on the way the weapon handles.
What do you think about the lean spam stuff? Because I know we didn't really talk too much about it. I know I'm guilty of doing it. I still do it sometimes, especially if I'm caught off guard. I'll start lean spamming really fast and shooting towards where I see the muzzle flash.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like it, just looks ridiculous. I
It
think,
does.
a lot of things I don't like about the game might, fall into that category. Cinematic, I like things to look a bit realistic, and so someone flopping around like that, just looks silly. Do I use lean in a gunfight? Yeah, but I'm not, QE as quick as I can. So that's sort of what I'm talking about. The rapid backwards and forwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and I think, easily solved by just putting a slight delay between when you can lean left and lean right again, would slow that down and make it less effective, and then people wouldn't use it that way. But when it comes to actually, using lean to, you know, um, change your angle on your opponent, or obviously to when you're peeking around corners, etc. I'm not talking about that as lean spam. It's people caught in the open who, they're like a shapeshifter. Some of them.
Somebody
And
or
and some guys are really good at it too. I mean, credit to them because it can't be easy.
we practiced it. We did
Mm.
practice it for a while. It was it was just part of competitive play at one point in time. Like having that extra advantage was definitely something worth practicing. But now it's a era past, and there's very few people that I think in the largest or in the grand scale, right? Like there's very few people that still do it, but there's enough people that um in group settings where there's like clans playing together or like old competitive friends playing together, um, you still do see it. Sometimes I won't see it for like a week, and then other times I'll see it like multiple times within a night when there's like a big enough group playing together, a big enough clan or friend group playing together where there's people that I've seen uh, in the past in competitive, or people that are still in the now smaller competitive scene. It's uh, it's something that can be fixed pretty easily, I think. And Colin said in chat, put a secondary stamina on leans. And if I'm not, didn't they do that at one point in time? Wasn't there a
There is a
secondary
lean
stamina?
penalty, yeah, for your stamina if you lean. There is, but if you're, I suppose, if that's in the context of slowing down the transition leaning, then yeah. If it's in terms of just your stamina pool, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of difference when you're standing there doing it. I don't know if I've seen anyone ninja enough to be doing it while running um, and shooting back, but I'm sure someone's out there that that practice. But to be clear too, I'm not talking about rapid peeking a corner, or you're sort of like prone peeking an enemy, maybe by lean right sort of thing. But that would, I suppose the same sort of fix I have in mind would make that a little harder to do. And again, I'm not after like complete realism, but I feel like those sorts of gamey things are probably too gamey in my opinion. And whenever I come across someone doing the tree in the wind act on me, I get more pleasure out of killing them than I do marksman. I must say. So I thank the people who do it for that reason because I get a kick out of killing them when they do it.
What's up? I always aim for like this doesn't really pertain to anybody else outside of like the people that play comp, I guess. But my way to combat it, and I'm not saying that it should still be in the game, but my way that I've used to combat it was when somebody starts leaning, I legitimately aim for their wiener. I'm not even lying. I am like dead center of their groin, so that way you're not hitting any trying to hit anything above the hips that's like waving back and forth.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a simple way to combat it. You just cent- center mass and a little lower. It's not wiggling like the rest of it.
But that being said, it should. I think you're spot on with adding some sort of delay or maybe increasing the stamina hit for leaning like rapid leaning. I wish there, and this is wishful thinking, right? And I think it would be really hard to manage, but maybe like doing a increased stam penalty based on how quick you're leaning or like how fast you're doing it. Like if you lean to the right one time to peek around a corner, I don't really think it should cost you stamina, even though it does. And that's just something that was implemented to combat that stuff. But if you hit QE in rapid succession, or even do it twice, like QE, then it should just nuke half your stamina or half your stamina bar or all your stamina bar, one of the two.
Yeah, I think just the speed at which you can do it, they could adjust that, and it would probably go a long way to making it just no benefit to doing it. Hence, they want to do it. When I'm just noticing chat, Dorks made the point, in terms of when I was talking about peaking corners, and one of the things we were going to talk about, and it's probably a good time to bring it up, is, and people might not know, but in squad there's a difference in left and right peaking. Now you may not know this, uh, audience, but I'm sure Frags knows it. But there's no left-handed shooters in squad. Everyone's right-handed rifleman, so their right arm is on the pistol grip, left arm's either on their foregrip or down the rifle. And what that means is when you're leaning to the right, you're actually exposing, and this would be the case in real life for a right-handed shooter, a lot less of yourself, um, and versus when you're leaning to the left. When you're leaning to the left, your whole left shoulder basically sticks out a lot more in order for you to be able to peek left, and that's translated in squad by the third person view as well. In some buildings, some situations, you can't actually see someone who can see you who's right leaning. If they're just right on the very point of just being able to peek the corner, right lean, a lot of the time you won't actually see them fire at you. These days you'll see muzzle flash. That's never the case if someone's left leaning. So my advice to everyone would be, just be wary, of when you're trying to peek the enemy of trying to do it right lean, and be wary of corners that are on your left as you approach them that enemies might be right leaning on. Left leaning should be avoided because you just expose yourself. And it's not so much the exposure to actually getting shot. It's literally the exposure to being seen. And obviously, there's a huge advantage in a game like Squad to being able to see the enemy before they see you, or indeed being able to see the enemy versus not being able to see the enemy.
I have a memory of just like a couple of weeks ago dealing with this on Narva, where again it was in like one of those big apartment buildings, and it was like myself, Reza, and somebody else, and we could see the muzzle flash coming from the threshold of the door that he was peeking out of on like the sixth floor, but you couldn't see him. And we kept trying to figure it out, like, why can we not see him? And it was only after that we remembered and discussed that there are certain points in which if somebody's really good at lean peeking, in certain scenarios, they cannot be seen. It's incredible, unbelievably incredible that that still goes on. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I remember when leaning was a lot more, you get like a lot more degrees out of it. I don't know how else to put it. Like you leaned a lot more than you do now. Do you remember that when it was like almost like a 90-degree lean to the right or to the left?
Yeah, it was very pronounced.
And maybe that would have helped a little bit if that was still there, but I don't think so. Do you think it would?
It could do because I suppose it exposes more of the head really at the end of the day. Yeah, it might do. I don't know if it's necessarily an issue. I think there is obviously a combination of things like certain terrain, certain building models um, naturally lends itself to, sort of be a bit glitchy where people's, barrels can be essentially, in a door frame as you mentioned, or really behind the door frame, but from their first person view, they're able to shoot past it. And then on top of that, if it's a right lean sort of situation, you really have no hope as the intended victim. I suppose up until the point they added muzzle flash, and that other than sound gives you an indication of perhaps where you're getting shot from. But then trying to return fire on an enemy you really can't see at that point is problematic. Should they fix it? Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of, I would imagine, work to be done there, and there's other things that would probably be in front of it, as optimizations, improvements in head registration, net code, and all that stuff before they get to those sorts of fine details of lean left versus lean right. I think it's fair there's a difference between the two. Um, Now, someone might say that, hey, they should, allow you to just swap to left-handed shooting. And I was talking to Assault actually about this the other day, and he said, yeah, some guys are really good at switching hand shooting. And I said, well, like, I'm pretty good at golf right-handed, but left-handed I I suck. Like,
Yeah.
is it that sort of equivalence, like, or is it somehow? He said, oh no, it's a bit easier because you're not sort of swinging. He said it's weird as the first time you do it, just doesn't feel natural at all. So obviously requires a lot of practice, but I don't know, if that's something that the game should have left-handers or not. Maybe we'll start a petition, left-handers in squad.
Yeah, that'd be strange. I couldn't imagine trying to shoot left-handed in squad. I couldn't imagine trying to just swapping my mouse and using my left hand. I couldn't do it. Even like down to like the mechanical level. I couldn't do that.
You say swap hands with the mouse. I like that. That's classic. Yeah, very immersive.
Yeah, very
Poseidon
immersive.
just mentioned a really good tip. It's muzzle awareness. Essentially, if you're in a window, don't be standing there with your gun and half your body poking out the window. Stand back in the building.
Yeah,
Sure, it's going to cut down the angles that you can see, but that also cuts down the angles you can be shot from and allows you to focus on whatever cone of fire you've given yourself without flagging your position by being halfway out the window.
especially on these newer, darker maps and darker layers, like you can be damn near unseen in the back of these buildings. I can tell you specifically one spot that it is super OP on. It's on Harju. I don't remember the name of the cap zone. I'm still getting used to the names of the cap zones there, but it's like that same like school looking building that they use on like Fools Road, on Hilltop Encampment, the one that they use on Narva and a bunch of different places. And
Hmm.
in that one spot on Harju, it is so dark that just walking into the building in itself is terrifying. But if you stand up in a window and back up like 5 feet, you cannot see the person that's standing there unless they fire and you see the muzzle flash. You will never know that they're there. It's so important for people to know to back yourself up if you're shooting at a longer distance, right? If somebody's out your window, you're gonna have to poke out the window and shoot down no matter what, right? But if somebody, I'm trying to think of somewhere where I can give an example, like,
Al Basra,
yeah,
it's
there we
got
go.
choose your own adventure of windows to be in and shoot out of. I think there it's a case of a lot of newer players will want to go to the top floor. They just want to
Yeah,
go to the top, right? On the roof even, and obviously standing on that roof gives you the best vision of where all the enemy are, and conversely, it also gives the enemy the best vision of you. So many a new player who's grabbed a marksman kit has died on the roofs there in Al Basra. Better approach. Um, pick a floor that's in line with what you're trying to cover. So, if it's one of the main roads there in the center of town, you don't have to be up near the top. You can be like second floor. You can be standing back a bit, and you can just be watching down the main road for any infantry that's crossing it. Pick them off as you please. I think as you go up, you force yourself then to get nearer to the window in order to shoot down, thus exposing yourself. And that's the so picking what floor to shoot from and even what building I think is important.
Um, Wrapping up here because I don't have too much time left. One of the last things I want to talk about, one of the most important changes that I think needs to be made to infantry right now, and this pertains to the animations themselves, and I'm talking about the prone animation. I spoke with Lon about this, filling people in from chat, but right before the stream, Lon and I spoke about this. And right now, I think machine gunners in particular are super busted when it comes to being able to bipod and spin 360 degrees at whatever way they please. I think there needs to be an animation update for MGs in particular. When it, I can't really give you like an exact. I didn't really think too hard about what degree that it needs to be at, but there needs to be a degree in which, um, if they're aiming, if they look outside of like a 30, I'm just giving an example. If they aim outside of like a 40-degree cone, they have to like readjust their bodies or something and then redeploy the bipod, or like something has to happen there, because them being able to bipod up like on a fence post and like spin 360 degrees. I've seen them like bipod up on like chimneys and do like 180s or 360s. It's something that needs a very serious change, because MGs are already really good, right? They can bipod up and laser beam you from 500 meters away. But I think there needs to be a change when it comes to the animation, so you don't have these like weird instances, which it happens more often than most people would imagine. If you even got a chance to see the MG before he beams you, of taking care of that animation issue and really um, cutting down on people being able to just spin around like a little top and pick a target wherever they please. I think there needs to be a way to mitigate that, and I think it's through animations, changed
It,
animations.
it
What?
it probably is, yeah. I mean, as it is, I mean, someone can lay prone on the top of a ladder and pretend they're a helicopter. I don't think you can do that. Get your bipod out. But you're right. There are plenty of terrain features that you'll see people prone bipoded on where they're sort of doing a 360, and it seems like their bipod is obviously pretty cool. It's got a bit of magic to it and allows them to essentially levitate while spinning around. I mean, it's a collision model thing. It's probably to do with detecting um, center of mass points. For whether or not someone should be falling off. If you walk off the edge of a building, you fall in squad. But I think the way that they have the bipod animation done, and the way that the logic is, it sort of attaches a bit like a grappling hook once you get it deployed. Um, and yeah, allows for those sort of cheeky and unrealistic positions.
The
And
amount
yeah,
of
the only
core
way
strength. Sorry, go
it,
ahead.
yeah, that's right. The amount of work I suppose that requires, I don't know. I mean, it might just be looking at the logic of detecting collisions and when there are none, letting gravity do its thing. But that's pretty deep in the SDK and really beyond my expertise.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I could knock my head on like a few times, but there's got to be a way to do something about it. I just don't know what it is, but I do know that um it needs to be worked on. I'm not going to pretend like it's the worst thing out there, like it's such a bad thing. It's not a horrible thing. It's just something that I think can be easily abused, especially when I was bringing up like the fence post thing, where people will bipod up on like fence posts and have range over, or views over a huge range, like especially on like Quora, bipoding up at west, or sorry, north of Hemp Farm on like the ruins, and you'll see a guy whose whole body is like hanging off of like this post, and the rest of his bipod is like looking straight out towards checkpoint, and he can spin and then look at hemp farm, even though his entire body is, um, that's why I made the core strength joke, is his entire body is hanging off of this fence post. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, a tip for anyone out there to get the same effect, if you happen to, have some sandbags available, um, put them down in a cross. So, like a plus sign on the ground, and then you can pick any of the extremities of that. So the edge of a sandbag, if you bipod on it, it'll give you 360 coverage,
Yeah,
which
that's
is, yeah,
that's insane.
you're doing a lot of like little mini shuffles there in a squat. So obviously, it's not just core strength; it's huge legs required as well. I mean, should they model in the weight differences of handling some of the MGs? They carry more ammunition in real life. They're heavier weapons most of the time, and than they are in real life. Like, do you think they should model those sorts of things in?
They could. I don't. The thing is, I don't know how hard it is to get certain things in. Like, it's beyond my knowledge. I know you toy with stuff more than me, so you have a better understanding than I do. But when it comes to like ideas, I don't want to be super critical because like I said, I don't know how hard it would be for them to implement certain things, like back to like the medic idea, or like the idea of doing the like 240-second down to the 120 down to the 60, like that kind of stuff. I don't know how hard it is for them to put this stuff in. Wishful thinking, I'd like to see it. Um, but I don't know how much time, effort, or how many of their resources it would take. I don't know offhand anymore how many people are on their team, how many people would be have to dedicated to getting said thing prepped.
Most of what we've talked about is just numbers. Just changing numbers. I think the last thing that we brought up, potential fixes, changing animations and changing the actual game logic. That then falls into the category of perhaps being a bigger investment on their
True.
part.
True.
The general vibe of the gunplay in Squad, I prefer over say something like Armor, but
Yeah,
a lot of
true.
people
I do
talk
too.
about a lot of people who I talk to really like the gunplay in Tarkov. Um, so I suppose that's part of any game, finding its flavor of things, and there's part of testing it and listening to your player base is tweaking the numbers and moving the dials, and I think for things like medic pickup time, et cetera, even you know having an automatic rifleman or an MG, better example, have a slightly slower run speed. Um, they already have different weapon characteristics, but have those characteristics more in line with being a heavier weapon, i.e. the PLA example with their automatic rifleman, who obviously has more ammunition he's carrying, so he should perhaps get some sort of movement penalties. I think most of that stuff can be done fairly easily as well. It's just time, but it's not like huge redevelopments.
Yeah,
But I
that's
suppose
true.
it depends what the vision for the game is, right? Like we knew what it was coming out of Kickstarter. Um, And I suppose when the roadmap came out a few years back, the roadmap, we sort of knew what it was then, and then they got a little behind on most of that they spent last year catching all up on. What are OWI's future plans? Do they feel like they've got it pretty much where they feel their sweet spot is for the way most things work? Obviously, with the introduction of emotes, and we'll see how that goes, but I would hope that they still look at some of these things that we've talked about. It's not the case that I have all the answers to what the right numbers are. A lot of the opinion I'm giving is just to someone who plays Squad, and some of the opinions that I've heard from other people. It's not because I've got some sort of crystal ball that allows me to know what the right value is, or what a particular um, value should be. But I feel like there's some there that could be tweaked for the betterment of the general gameplay.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too. Like we spoke about it on the first episode a little bit, and I wish they would be more transparent with us about certain things. And I'm not being critical of them being less transparent with us, but it would be nice for us to know like how many people it takes to do X thing, how many months it took to produce X amount of like how here's a good example. Like how many months did it take to do Harju? And then, how long was it for testing? Um, then down to the mechanics, like what did they do for bipoding? Some games when they add a feature, they will, or even while the game's being developed, when they add a feature, they will create a video or do like a live stream introducing the feature, explaining how they did it, what's going on, and kind of bringing the people into a comfort zone with the new feature and how to use it, or depending on what kind of game it is, how to use its implementation properly. Whereas in Squad, it just kind of gets thrown in and then it's there. um so I wish there was some more transparency there. I wish they would do a little bit more of a better job when it comes to introducing the people and the content, if that makes sense. um but I
There's
mean,
development studios out there, and Cloud Imperium comes to mind, Star Citizen, and they put out weekly videos or behind the scenes sort of stuff, and it's really interesting, and you get to hear what it is they're trying to achieve, what they're working on. But that's pretty much, they've been doing that since the word go, as they came out of Kickstarter, before they became the behemoth they currently are. And I
yeah,
suppose, for OWI, that might not be something that's, feasible for them to do. Perhaps the cost and expense of doing that would wouldn't match, the player base or the interest in it. But from a personal point of view, I agree with you. I'd love to hear more from them about um, their overall vision, why they've done things the way they've done things, because I assume they have reasons, and they're probably very very valid reasons, and I would love to just know what they are, for interest's sake, not because I want to be critical,
yeah,
but
I
just
would be much
to
more
understand it better.
accepting. I would be much more accepting of faults if they were like, "Well, this is what happened and why," or we were going through a transition, switching between like our new management or new developers and getting people accustomed to all the different things that we have going on here. Um, you know, uh, filling them in on this list of bugs that we're trying to fix and trying to figure out what's happening. Things like that, right? I wish they would just talk to us more. That's all I want when it comes to that, down to
Hmm.
that line, is I just want a conversation, a really good game that's being developed that's doing this, and it's completely out of category for Squad, but it's a game called Ashes of Creation, and every single time they add something, during they do like a monthly showcase or like every couple of months, and when they do this, every single time they do it, they go through like what they've added, what's expected to come in the future, and they do like a showcase of what they've added and kind of demoing it. And if something didn't come through, they will explain why it happened or why it's taking longer to get something done. Um, Whether or not the excuse is valid, they're at least taking the time to be transparent and explain why things are going the way they are, or why this content is being fixed or changed the way that it is because of said reason. Um, so it's just one of
We're
those things.
upgrading next week to version 4.27 of the SDK, and it's been version 4.23 for a couple of years, and that's part of the Squad 4.2 update. So that drops next Wednesday, I believe, February 8th.
Okay.
It will include the emotes, which are
Emotes
probably
and the Unreal,
the
yeah.
most the most notable thing that's been released. They mention improvements to visuals of U.S. Army faction, the new uniforms and character models, and then they chuck in, was it a new map layer, Mutahar Seed, and then the new emotes.
Udahasi.
So those are the headline items. So the emotes, a new seating layer, and the U.S. Army character model update, which is pretty cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what they've done with that update, because obviously, for a lot of stuff I do, the better the models, look, the better my end cinematics end up looking.
Huh. Well, I don't mean to cut it short. We're going for an hour and a half, and I could sit here and talk all day, but I need to take care of some other things before normal stream time. Lon, as always, thank you so much for being a part of this stream. I hope we can get Assault on here one of these times soon, because I'd love to have a third head and bounce more ideas off of each other. I know he's been a really busy guy lately, so it's totally fine. I'm not gonna give him any shit for that. But for all the people that either came in late or didn't get a chance to see it, go check out Lawn Darts on YouTube. He makes phenomenal content, a lot of really, really, really good cinematic stuff. Um, Definitely take the time to go sub to him. Subbing on YouTube's free, helps out his channel a lot. And we will. I don't know what's going to happen next weekend on Saturday, so I'll be more. I'll be talking to you guys more about it throughout the week to let you know if it's going to be able to happen Saturday, if it happens, or if it has to happen Sunday, or if we just need to suspend it and put it off until the next week. So we'll figure it out. Lon, thank you so much again for being on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Panic. Always a pleasure, and shout out to everyone in chat. Thanks for all your contributions and your good suggestions for the topics we've been discussing today.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of this, guys. We will discuss afterwards or sometime throughout this week what the next one is. The next one's going to be. If it, like I said, if it's not next Saturday, we'll continue whatever the planned topic is the following weekend. So much love, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here. This will be uploaded to YouTube sometime between tonight and tomorrow morning. I have to wait for everything to render and all that stuff. And there's like weird YouTube rules where they don't want you to upload stuff right after doing it on Twitch. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. For those who come and watch the normal squad stream, I'll see you guys in about an hour. Love you guys to death. Thank you so much. Kilo, thank you so much for the 3 months, brother. I really appreciate it. Now that I get a chance to say thank you for that. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.